What does God look like? What do you see?
We're solar-powered biological AI.
Wait, what?
These ancient adversarial entities, I think it's the very same ones that rebelled against God and were cast out.
They were sent here to guide us in antiquity, and they took advantage of that and just masqueraded as gods. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Greypilled Podcast. I am your host, Jules. If you've been here before, you know me. Coming at you live from the depths of Mississippi. I am joined by a very special guest today, Mr. William Ramsey. William, how are we doing today, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Glad to be with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is your first time on Greypilled. I know we've done a couple other shows. You were on Already Dead a few times, and two of those times I was co-hosting. So it's great to finally get you here.
Yeah.
For people who aren't too familiar with you, do you want to kind of let people know who you are?
I presently, my current kind of career incarnation is as a podcast host. My podcast, William Ramsey Investigates, is in the top 0.5% in the world. So it's fairly like in the top 30,000, maybe 40,000 podcasts. And I really started as an investigative journalist. On my kind of spare time, I was telling somebody the other day, I really made my bones as a research grinder. And my first book was published in 2010, and I'm now at 5 books, 5 documentaries, and like 1,300 episodes on my podcast. So, and I've covered a lot of different topics. I kind of just whatever sometimes one topic will lead to another topic, and that's kind of what happened to me. So I started off with, I was really a 9/11 researcher. I'd never published anything, but I was grinding, trying to learn as much about 9/11 as possible, which led me to Prophet of Evil, which led me to research the West Memphis 3, which then Children of the Beast, which is like Crowley's influence on 20th century.
Yep.
And then I started researching the Smiley Face Killers. That led to 2 documentaries. Then I kind of bounced back and did a book on the Smiley Face Killers recently, and also this kind of a cult group called the Order of Nine Angles. That's Global Death Cult, which for some reason started reselling like I had a book surge. Like I published that back in 2021, but it's still a present topic. So sometimes these topics, I know a lot about them, but sometimes I reach a different audience and different things. And I think there's still current present topics, whether it's Crowleyism or these other things. So, and then on my podcast, I've just covered a lot of different stuff, film analysis, events, books. I've been a guest and a host, so I'm a bit of a hybrid. I really started off as a guest, and then I kind of flipped the script a little bit, and then I really took off during COVID. I kind of became a full-time host. So that's kind of a short analysis of a lot of what I've been up to. And now my earlier incarnation going back is I went to law school in 1995, graduated in 98, became a member of the state bar, worked as an attorney. Then 2001 happened, and then I moved to LA, and then I started working in mortgages, and I worked for almost every major mortgage company during the mortgage boom and real estate. And and then I'm an inactive member of the state bar, and then really started writing books, and really it was really coming out of what I didn't understand, how controlled the mass media was.
Right.
I really know it today. We know it today through USAID, things like this. Like you marvel at the sophistication and depth and breadth, like everything's controlled. Even these things that are people thought were ostensibly independent. They're getting money from the government. So it really was kind of like, why are people talking about these certain subjects that I thought were important? And I found other people who had me on to talk about them as well because they thought they were important too. So kind of became, I guess, someone in the alternate media. And then, that kind of led up to 2025. That's basically it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you have a history. I think Alston had mentioned to me that you were an attorney. So
I still am. I'm a member of the state bar. I have privileges and benefits. I'm inactive, so I cannot practice without becoming active. But it's like being a part of a guild or something like that. So
I got you.
I still get, insurance through them and things like that. So, but it's also like a moral ledger. They've tried to kill my reputation, but
of course, yeah.
You can tell by going through my law degree that I don't have any. I mean, I've been a member of the state bar in 1998. I don't have any criminal record. And I had to get into the bar. You have to tell them if you have any criminal records for 10 years. So to get into 1998, you have to go back to 88. So and I graduated from high school in 86. So
okay.
I can tell people with 100% accuracy, I've never been arrested for anything for 35 years or something like that. So, but I mean, I've just online.
Yeah.
They tried to tag you with anything they can.
Oh, absolutely. Even if it's not you doing it, they'll try to be like, hey, this guy, you may have the same name as somebody else who has, and some folks will believe anything they see online, right?
Yeah, for me, it's like put it in writing, and do me a favor because I'm a public figure now. You can put it in writing, go get it notarized, and I'll talk to my people. I mean, it's that simple. And I think that's the same thing in reality. If it's not in writing or somebody's not willing to actually say it or publicize it, this is it. Come on, it's ridiculous.
Right. And it seems like you said you had first started off with 9/11. It seems like that's a starting point for a lot of people. I remember besides the footage from Bohemian Grove, 9/11 was kind of one of those things that kick-started my awakening, so to say. Then when you look into it, you start to see who's at the top and what else these people are doing behind closed doors. And then you get into that and it gets a lot darker, right? And we were talking before the show how most people don't see any of that. It's kind of like you have this main stage of what they present to you, and then, you have backstage, what no one sees in a way, but they still kind of advertise it through this symbolism and this revelation of the method. What was the first thing that got you? And so you said 9/11. What was it about 9/11?
Well, I believe the story from the beginning. So September 11th, 2001, I was like, okay, I was on board. Osama bin Laden was a bad guy. The towers fell down. And then there were some things that kind of bothered me. I remember Bush saying, kind of get back to work or something 2 or 3 days after it happened. With business, we got to get back to business or something like that. And then it was this is Iraq. Well, I'm like, Iraq's shouldn't be involved in this because your story is it's Osama bin Laden and 19 terrorists. Interesting number, 19. But so that was a problem. And then I think it's just kind of scales falling from your eyes. This is baloney. Then I think Loose Change came out and I saw Loose Change and I'm like, yeah, it's hard to believe that your government, for me, it was hard to believe my government could do something like that. But then the scales kind of fall off. And then there's a whole space. There's a lot of sophisticated people and intelligent people were like, hey, story doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so then that was kind of oh, wow, I should really start researching that. I really did a lot of research. I mean, almost every major Griffin, Everett Jones was another guy, Judy Wood. I mean, all these guys, I really looked at their material and then I was like, this whole story is baloney. This is an intel story. And this is to start off the New World Order and a new phase in human, internationally. This is a real event that somebody plotted and planned for a long period of time. And so then that's like, wow. So it's pretty intense, like psychological change in your mind. Like, whoa, this is I have to learn. I don't know much about intelligence agencies. I'm not from these people's background. I'm not an Eastern elite. I'm from Nebraska. Like, I got to really figure out who George Bush is, George Bush Sr. And then it kind of led me to the occult. Like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And I see all these numbers, and I keep seeing them in the common culture. There's 11s and 93, like people wearing shirts with 93 on them. Like, this has some meaning. It's almost like They Live or something, where you put on the glasses. It's like you're talking about, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz, like what's going on in front of the curtain and what's going on behind. So I had to learn all that stuff that's going on behind the curtain and actual stuff. And that's what led me to my first book, is like, whoa, there's a lot of occult stuff that happened on 9/11, hidden or esoteric or, involved all this stuff. So that's why my first book was Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order, because there's a lot of 11s that happened on that date, and it's not even arguable. Like, the day is an 11. The ideogram of the Twin Towers is 11, and the first plane to hit the Twin Towers is Flight 11. Why? Is that random? Wow. So to some of these Christians, I've had like Christians, like I'm a Christian, Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So I was raised kind of Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I read the Bible a lot. So, I kind of know the ideas of discernment, and there'd be great deceptions, and, end of the world, people will be like the days of Noah.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with all that. And I'm like, why are these other people not talking about this? Why isn't this a Christian issue? Much like today, like we just went through the Biden administration, which is basically Luciferianism. And a lot of these Christian leaders don't really talk about it. So you get frustrated watching this. Like, isn't somebody going to say this? And almost every even political movement, social movement in the United States is infiltrated. Like, that's another thing that you learn. Like, the 9/11 movement was probably infiltrated, people controlling things, people doing devious things behind the system, behind the scenes and things like that, and subtly nudging people in certain directions away from some other truths. And so I was like, well, that's what kind of led me to write that first book. And that was kind of where it all began. It was 2010. I literally printed out, I have it here. I literally printed out my first book on my printer. Like, I self-published everything because they were trying to scam me for like dollars and stuff. But yeah, this is actually I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can pull this out. Oh, yeah, but like they like I was trying to shop my book, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you 5 cents, net, like after cost and all this stuff. Like, even at the beginning of the internet, they had a place called Create Space that now became Kindle KDP. But like the scam, like that's another scam, is like this publishing industry. I didn't want to have anybody touch my manuscript either. Like, I was very sensitive of like, what if I give this person my manuscript? What if they turn it into like a children's story or something? Like,
right.
Like, I did a lot of research for this. So this is my goofy first title.
Oh
see
man,
if I can make this work.
It's kind of, I was gonna say,
I'll
I need to order that.
Well, you won't be able to find this version because this is my own lame,
director's cut.
Yeah,
so to say, yeah.
But like, this is it. I mean, I literally printed out. It has pictures and stuff. But I'm now on my 3rd edition. But this was really it. Like, this is like the Crowleyism or occultism that's involved in this whole 9/11 event. Like, I think it still stands up to the test of time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of it. So then I became kind of a Crowley expert. But yeah, so I think, 9/11 was like, there's a lot of stuff going on. It kind of made me think about all the stuff in past history too. So I had to really, I had a very conventional education, and I accepted what people said in history books. But a lot of the stuff in academia is a bunch of baloney too,
Oh, of course.
So
yeah. 9/11 seemed like the catalyst to set off all these wars in the Middle East. And, you have all the prophecies about the Gog and Magog wars. And then you have Senior and Junior, their names in the Skull and Bones being Gog and Magog,
right.
All that symbolism. So, yeah, man, it seems to me that all this stuff, what you were saying, like, it's kind of happening, and they create some movement to push you one way, right? Like some kind of misinformation. Now you had mentioned 19. What's the significance of the number 19?
I had this thing where it was a Luciferian number. Actually, the number 19 is kind of, and I have to go back and look at it, but in numerology, there was some kind of, it's not as significant as some of these other numbers in the occult, like 11, 77, 93 is truly Crowley's number. There's Flight 93 in 9/11. But I have to go back and find my 19 reference because it does have kind of an occult significance.
Yeah, 77, the Goat of Mendez. I know you have been on John Lee Chaubeck's show, I'm pretty sure. And he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So we did an episode 2 weeks ago maybe, talking about 42, 77, the Dark Mother, all that stuff, and how Crowley was talking about, you will know that we are in the Aeon of Horus when you see these numbers everywhere. And then so when you start paying attention to that, you do start seeing these numbers everywhere.
You really do. You see 77 a lot
crazy,
and 93, yeah. In my first book, I have like a whole chapter on 77. It's like the Goat of Mendez, the Lady Babylon, the 77 names of Satan.
I'm ordering that.
Yeah, it's all there
today.
Yeah, but Chaubeck just finished a new book. I was trying to get him on. He's really busy.
He did.
He's like you. He can only work on weekends or stuff like that.
Yeah, but, he's a busy guy.
Or do podcasts on weekend, I should say. But it's a great book. Like he noticed all these, like the numerologies that, like, why are people putting this numerology in these events? And what do people ritualize and occult these huge public events? And like, it's hard to believe, but the answer is yes. Because that's the way, if you're in that kind of realm, you think like you've got to maximize the power. So you're thinking about like a huge event that's planned. It's the cultural implications, political, financial, spiritual, magical, ceremonial, magical. And then who's going to watch this event and understand it and who's not going to understand it. So the profane aren't going to understand it, but the occultists and the highest occultists, the most initiates, will know exactly what's going on. So people who saw 9/11 on that date, they knew exactly what
it's go time.
Yeah, it's go time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to pull this up. We have a Rumble rant from a mutual friend, $5 from Nephilim Death Squad, two of my favorite content creators in one place. Let's go. All right. Thank you, Raven. Or Top. I don't know which one. For the $5, guys.
Let me pull out this book again. I'll find the 77 thing at the end because it ties into Crowley too. Let me see. Because I have it in my appendix, like this whole 77 thing.
Yeah, Crowley was one of the, like, when I really started waking up and diving deeper into the esoteric and the occult, not just conspiracies. Crowley was one thing that I realized, like, wow, this guy was such an influence in our modern day. Like what you said, the title of your book, his shadow over humanity. I think that's a great way to describe it. Especially when it comes to the arts and some of these elite figures, right? Like they it's like they're not hiding it anymore. Almost, they'll wear him on a shirt, and like you said, the use of these numbers, you can really tell who is into this stuff. So,
yeah, like Jay-Z, like this is a guy in hip hop, like a black rapper's wearing a "Do What Thou Wilt" shirt. There's no question
on that interview. Yeah,
that's all real. You can find that. Like, there's another guy who's like a full-on Crowley who's put like "Do What Thou Wilt" on his back. Crowley's super racist too. He hated everything.
Oh yeah,
didn't like Italians. Like he just was pretty all-around horrible person. But
absolutely, yeah. And
it is interesting to see these kind of occult, like black occultist environment. But yeah. He's all over the place in odd ways. And a lot of those people know his kind of practices and things like that. And you can see its effect in one example is like the kind of Hollywood worship of the West Memphis Three, whose kind of leader is a full-on Crowley lover, Damien
Eccles. Yeah.
he had a lot of support from Hollywood. Maybe that's his main support was Hollywood. And they definitely cast some kind of spell or some kind of mind control thing because they got everybody to believe that he was actually the victim instead of the perpetrator. So it's like this inversion kind of principle that takes place in the occult.
Yeah, now he's writing books on Enochian language and John Dee and Edward Kelly, and you're like, what the hell is going on? It's kind of like I'm sure as soon as he got out of prison, he was set up with a book deal and everything.
He was set up with everything. I think he had tons of money. They raised $10 or $20 million.
Holy,
like it was like a huge sum of money. It wasn't like chump change. They allowed him to get like PR people, lawyers. This is kind of like that kind of incredible power of some of these guys. Like you don't see you see things happen, but you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. You don't see, like you said, what's the levers being pulled behind the curtain by the Wizard of Oz. And 77 equates with Oz, by the way. So you can look up Liber Oz. Yeah,
Liber Oz, right?
No, there's no God but man, and anybody who frustrates your rights, you can kill them, according to Liber Oz. So, but so that's the West Memphis Three. I mean, incredible stories. But yeah, Eccles, like Crowley, was interested in Dee and Kelly and did rituals like Dee and Kelly. I don't know if Eccles really did. I'm assuming he has, but Crowley went to the desert in Tunisia. Well, no, it was actually not Tunisia, not Morocco, Algeria. So he was in Algeria with a friend doing Enochian magic. Like literal the Aether calls of the Aether. There's 49 Aether calls for some reason. So he was doing that. And then Eccles all over his body, he has the Enochian language. He's kind of tattooed himself with that language. He knows like these secret kind of occult languages and things like that.
So what happened to the other two guys that were tied up with Eccles?
They've kind of all split apart. So Miss Kelly, who confessed 5 or 6 times, is still in West Memphis. And then my understanding is Jason Baldwin is in Texas. And then Eccles went from New York. No, he went out of jail to Salem because he identified with the witch trials there, Salem, Massachusetts. Then to New York City. Then now I believe he's in New Orleans.
Yeah, and when you look at the West Memphis Three, it made me immediately think of the 3 initiates, right, with King Solomon.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I mean, it's very dark. His interests are he's very well read. He actually said on the stand, like, I don't remember verbatim, but he's like, what do you know about the cult? Was like the question. His response at 18 was, I know everything about the occult.
Right.
Like he's like literally saying I'm a full on like in there.
Yeah, you can look at that. And he's in court, like just mocking.
Talking about Crowley, trying to manipulate, trying to weasel out. And he's still around, he's smart. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
But he's written all these occult books on magic and all this other stuff. And feigns innocence. And he goes on these like shows like Piers Morgan, and they just softball him, throw him underhanded pitches, and I think they're all his interviews are mostly pre-screened, so he never goes on somewhere and just talks. It's just like, I won't go on certain things and talk, but
of course.
He was on Tim Pool actually recently, I think last year.
What?
And really, yeah, you can hear a podcast. I analyzed that on my podcast. But it was like funny because it was on a subset of Tim Pool's show called The Culture War. So here he is on The Culture War, just like I called it the Colossal L in The Culture War was my title because Tim Pool wasn't prepped. I guess he fired everybody. Tim Pool did because he fired his old show. Whole show, he fired everybody. And then I think he sold it. Yeah. But his scheduler, whose name I won't mention, was the one who apparently is another fan of Eccles who said you should have him on. So Poole, I think, unwittingly interviewed a guy he didn't know was convicted of killing 3 8-year-old kids. And that's still convicted. He's still a convict. He's still guilty at law.
He's just acting like an average Joe. He's out there. That's crazy, man. See,
but he's telling the public it's a big lie. Like he's the persecuted one. It's almost like, he made the legal system look bad when they were all doing their job. And the public is kind of weak-minded and is poorly informed, so they're very, very poorly informed. All the case laws out there, like I wrote a book about it, Abomination. You can just read the court documents. They're incredible. Jesse Miskelly's like confessing over and over and over again. Nobody will listen to him. And Eccles is in 3 mental institutions leading up to the murder. And he's some kind of like, you would never do this. He's just a disturbed kid who liked rock and roll t-shirts. And he's like, literally, they used him as kind of like a model on one of the biggest shows in Netflix history, Stranger Things. They put this kid out there that's based on Eccles.
I never thought about
And the
it.
more research, the 4th,
Wow. So what was it that led you into first researching Crowley? Because, I've tried at times to get more into like maybe getting one of his books just to see where, just to see it through like the kind of the reader's view of things. But my wife, she used to own a couple Crowley books back before we were married and stuff, and she ended up throwing them out. She doesn't want me really reading them. I mean, I don't think if you have a relationship with the Holy Spirit, it seems to me that these things can only make that relationship stronger,
I think my journey into the occult validated my view of my Christian Bible-based worldview. Because if you read the New Testament, Christ is like up against enemies. The political enemies are very dark, whether it's who's the one who killed all the children? It was I can't remember his name now, but very dark. Like from the beginning, the family had to flee to Egypt. Remember
Herod?
Herod, thank you.
Yeah.
And so like, and then he's like casting out demons, and there's Simon Magus is trying to contest with Peter, and there's apocryphal stuff about Peter and Simon Magus, right? And there's, Paul is contesting with all kinds of different thinkers, and there's Gnosticism starts getting into the church. So,
Right.
and if you go into the Old Testament, there's the Jannes and Jambres. Moses is contesting with them in Egypt. There's the witch at Endor.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, whatever they're up to. So these things are going to happen. Like these are concurrent, and Crowley's just the most recent manifestation of these darker aspects of our existence. People who choose to go into the darkness. So I think that for me, it enhanced my faith, didn't degrade it. And I was never going into like, I'm going to go practice magic.
Right.
I'm not a practicer of magic, people. Give me a break. I'm a really objective kind of historian trying to tell what's the truth. So Crowley, the reason I got into Crowley was 9/11. So the 11s, that's like the main number in Crowley's magical system, right? For a wide variety of reasons. But it's the number of magic. It's the macrocosm and microcosm symbolized by the 6 and the 5, or the pentagram and hexagram added together. And that's what the magician's trying to do, is trying to bring in powers from the universe and the inside of themselves to make change and according to their will, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to understand. Like, because once you understand Crowley, you understand every other person who's in magic, because Crowley, everybody in the modern world goes through Crowley. Like everybody has a Crowley phase, or they're researching Crowley, whether it's the Process Church or Aquino or
Temple of Set.
Temple of Set, Temple of Satan with LeVay. They all mention Crowleyites or Crowley. Even the Order of Nine Angle type people, Myatt, who people don't know as much about, they should. But so that's kind of like understanding Crowley is that real. It's a understanding the doctrines, but also the history, the cultural history. These people are connected. Like LeVay is connected to a lot of people. And Crowley was too at his time. Crowley was really kind of a snob, intellectual snob, who only hung out with kind of elites. And he knew a lot of people, and they knew him. Like he was a very well-known figure among the elites who traveled the world. So it was important for me to kind of understand Crowley, because that's the thinking that these people who did 9/11, in my opinion, had that same this kind of magical worldview. this New Age worldview that Crowley had, and an occulted worldview. And a lot of people like Crowley, who was an intel agent, a lot of these people in intelligence are occultists. There's just absolutely no doubt about it. People who signed the NSA Act sitting behind Truman, there were like 4 members of Skull and Bones there. And those are all the people who populated the CIA, whether it's George Bush, who suddenly appeared and was the head of the CIA coming out of nowhere. This is Magog, just like you said, right?
Right.
Who gave probably one of the more potent geopolitical speeches of the late 20th century on September 11th, 1990, right? His New World Order speech.
11 years before. Wow.
Ding, ding. Yes. Exactly.
Oh, man. That's wild.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. He uses the Pontifex Maximus stuff. He's like crossing a bridge to a new age and all this.
See 1,000 points of light.
Yeah, 1,000 points of light.
Yeah.
Too. So like a lot of occulted stuff. And, this is for ourselves and future generations. I don't think he's not talking to the general public. It's a double play. He's actually just talking to all his friends in Congress at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be for ourselves, for us people here. They can listen to it out there because this is a true elitist. Like he's a true blue blood, member of all kinds of secret societies. It's Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones is just the beginning,
right?
Whether it's like you mentioned, it was Bohemian Grove and all kinds of stuff. Maybe stuff we don't even know. So, So I think that's really it. It's like, what do these people think? The elitists, the slaves shall serve. They're at the top of the heap. They're at the top of the pyramid. And we're all kind of disposable human resources. And Crowley, like if you read Crowley get into like his political theorizing, like he really believed that the best system was a feudal system. Yep. And you see this kind of neo-feudalism happening since 9/11. Like, I mean, basically the average person in the U.S. is a slave because of taxes. And I mean, they're just stealing us from us blind in D.C. And
absolutely. Yeah.
My dad could have a job, have a family, pay off his house, have a car, cover his health care, and put money in the bank. And today, the average person, $500 cost, they're upside down. So the government has literally and the guys at Nephilim Death Squad, when we finished our show the other day, it was kind of a not nasty word, but I think they're right. They've been feeding us manure for decades. So our government doesn't. I mean, we're at a time of like a revolutionary time because people are going to be pissed. They've stolen billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars from us. And once people realize that, it's going to be like, why am I paying taxes so you can steal it? The government's just a big freaking flim-flam scam ripoff machine. And Bernie clowns and evil people like Bernie Sanders is just a good camouflage goof. Like he's just a better liar. He's got a better con than everybody else.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking out for the worker. And where do we do all this stuff? It's just complete corrupt BS. He's just a parasite, just like all the other ones, along like Warren and all these other people. And they're going to find out people are on the take. Like literally there was a $40 billion slush fund coming back out of, this is what somebody else traced, coming back out of Ukraine that fed back into the U.S., just like everybody's saying, So why doesn't the public or anybody talk about it? Because they're all on the take. And the people who aren't on the take are going to be pissed because they got scammed. So anyway, that's kind of a long route about Crowley because other people think like Crowley. And they affect our lives. That's really
he, to me, was probably the most renowned chaos magician of our time. Not only because all these people follow him, but just because of like the Amalantra workings and all these certain rituals that he did in these locations, around the world.
Around the world, yeah.
In the King's Pyramid, the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, contacting Lamb and Aiwass, which I really just think are lesser deities to the same system of the fallen, right? All these entities that have been worshipped over time. I think that Lamb and Aiwass are just, younger deities. You can call
According
it
to
your
Crowley,
children, or
according to Crowley in Magic Theory and Practice, he says that Awas is Satan, right? Lucifer of our starry thing. So he's saying that's the big boss, is the one who dictated to him the Book of the Law. Lamb is different, and that was the Alamantra working that took place at 1 Washington Place in New York City. He did that in 1918. And famously, that kind of weird, gray-headed alien shows up, and everybody references it in the UFO community, but they don't see the commonality between a UFO and a devil, or like you said, or a fallen one or something.
right.
But I think you're right. I mean, some people have disputed whether Crowley's whatever happened in 1904 in Egypt with Awas is even real, because he, was very fortunate to happen to him to put him on the very top of kind of the occult community. And some people have criticized the Book of the Law as being very Nietzschean, which it is. But it's much more than that. There's a lot more themes and other things going on in that. So, you kind of have to leave it up to people's perception. But according to Crowley, that was the seminal event in his life in 1904, was what happened in Egypt. And the Book of the Law, which is now in the kind of, Gnostic Mass, Crowley's Gnostic Mass. It's right there in the center.
Now, was the OTO, was that the first kind of society that he was in, or he was in the Golden Dawn at first, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So he was done with school. He left Cambridge without getting a degree, went to London. He's a rich guy, his parents have tons of money. And he's making this gesture of I'm initiated right there, right?
Right.
And so that's more of a Rosicrucian cross. That's what he calls the Stella of Revealing. And those are all of his ceremonial magical implements: wand, sword, ball, and the Book of the Laws down there on the bottom. It's in a small thing. But you'll see people, Johnny Depp makes that same I'm initiated sign in one of his movies. And you'll see people do that. Even do it in the Christian church, even though they're not occultists. It probably came out of the Christian church or some of these initiated functions into the occult. But Crowley was in the Golden Dawn, which is a post-Masonic fraternity. So people have gone through the 33 degrees of Masonry, then they go into the Golden Dawn. And it's primarily ceremonial magicians. And so Crowley's there with some other very famous poets, Yeats, and his mentor is a guy by the name of, his fake name was MacGregor Mathers. And so MacGregor Mathers, he kind of took on this kind of persona of Mathers took on personas of a Scottish king. And so Crowley kind of emulated him, where he'd get up in weird dress and stuff like that. So he kind of became Mathers' acolyte, and then eventually contested with Mathers, went to court against Mathers after making a promise to not disclose stuff about the Golden Dawn and then disclosing it. And so there's a court record there. And then Crowley moved on from the Golden Dawn to making his own kind of group called the Astrum Argentum, or Silver Star, which was kind of like an independent magical training group where you would have one mentor you would know, and then he would guide you through the practice of magic. And then he joined a bunch of other different fraternities. He was definitely like the Memphis and Mizraim, 97 and 99. He had all kinds of like initiatory stuff. He said he had enough like medallions and medals to bury an elephant, like he had been in through so many secret societies. But the OTO was really a German secret society, the Ordo Templi Orientis. And so he, over time, he had contact with some of the founding members. Royce was his name, Theodore Royce. He became kind of affiliated with them. And then eventually Royce died and Crowley became the head of the OTO in 1925. And actually kind of rewrote a lot of their rituals and then integrated the Book of the Law into the OTO. And he was the head of the OTO until his death in 47.
Okay, now the OTO and the Typhonian OTO, was Kenneth Grant an acolyte of Crowley?
Absolutely. So at Crowley in his latter days, he had lost all his money. He had gone through his whole inheritance. He never really worked a real job in his life. So he didn't have a 9-to-5 job.
He was a trust fund dork, right?
He's a trust fund dork, yeah. He's a trustafarian or whatever you call it today. But He ended up at a kind of a higher end boarding house in Hastings. So that's the south of England really at the coast. So if you took a line from London and went straight south, you'd hit Hastings. That's where Crowley was. And people would come visit him there and write him and send him money. Jack Parsons would send him money. But one of the people who showed up there was Kenneth Grant. So Kenneth Grant lived with him for a time and learned everything. And the Typhonian OTO is something that Kenneth Grant came up. He's written a number of books, probably like 7 or 8 books on
the Mob Zone and a bunch of other stuff, right?
A lot of kind of entity stuff or UFO stuff. But
Yeah.
he was, literally at Crowley's knee. So he lived at something either like in a tool shed or something close to Crowley.
Of course, he
Spent
did.
a week with him. Yes.
Because occultists are so weird. Yeah, that's something that you see is a lot of these guys were in the same kind of group together, and then they branch off and start these other groups. And then to me, it just seems like I always talk about this, how Satan just means adversary. And in my opinion, there are many lesser deities that you could worship as Satan, right? It just depends on the certain rites and rituals, as well as the symbolism that you use. So yeah, man, it's
Or just a different name for Satan, right? Or whatever, Satan or Shaitan. Or
right.
whatever. Or you could worship these other entities, like some of these guys, like trying to think like Alan Moore has the serpent being he worships who gives him information. Like literally a guy whose ideas have pervaded our entire culture. Likes Crowley, is a ceremonial magician, and this is in the Children of the Beast. He has some kind of snake entity that he worships. Like he literally follows. And he's written V for Vendetta. He's written From Hell, right, about the Jack the Ripper killings. He's written, what's the other one about with the comedian and Rorschach? What's it that came out? Anyway, he's done a lot of work. But he's a ceremonial magician. Let's see if I can find that.
You just brought up Jack the Ripper. Isn't there a theory that he was just like some kind of aristocracy guy?
According to rumor, Jack the Ripper was just kind of like a
pseudonym.
Pseudonym. Well, but what it was to cover up the fact that the heir to the throne had a child with a prostitute. So they killed. It was a Masonic. That's basically the thesis of From Hell. Is that they went out and killed a bunch of other people to make it look like it was a serial killing when it really was killing somebody else, somebody out of who's connected to the royalty or whatever. Let me see if I can find this Alan Moore thing from Children of the Beast.
Yeah, man.
But it does, they kind of like pull, they work off each other. Prophet of Evil is a kind of biography of Crowley. And then Children of the Beast is like all these people he influenced. Alan Moore. The Watchmen was what I was trying to remember.
Watchmen. Okay.
Watchmen, From Hell, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and V for Vendetta.
He made all those movies.
He wrote all those comics that the movies are based on.
Okay. Wow, man. This is...
Alan Moore said he studied Aleister Crowley and considers him one of the 2 most interesting and powerful magical thinkers of the 20th century. So he's literally saying that. He literally is doing that. But let me see if I can find this weird entity that he's talking about.
And
Crowley's in his work too, by the way.
Of course he is. He's in all this pop culture stuff. Like when I first saw him on the Beatles cover, my dad has that LP. And so I literally walked over to my dad's record collection, pull out this this record and see Crowley's face on it. I'm like, oh wow, this is real. That's I first came to realizing that stuff. Also, you mentioned Jay-Z, you see other people. Which one was it? One of the Jonas Brothers had a Crowley shirt on. And then
interesting.
You see Kenneth Anger, who did the Hollywood Babylon book. I actually have that. He was working with Jimmy Page and all those guys who were, I think, trying to channel the same entities that Crowley was by living in, where he lived. And then
Right. So Boleskine Manor.
yes.
Jimmy Page bought Boleskine Manor.
Was that the one that was on Loch Ness?
Correct.
Okay. And there's something to that too with the Loch Ness monster, whatever Crowley, whatever kind of portals he was opening, maybe brought some like Leviathan beast out. I don't know, it's just theories, you know. But with the Jonas Brothers, it's weird to see that. And then Kenneth Anger on one of the last public speeches that he did comes out listening to the Jonas Brothers and then goes on to talk about how Disney is actually an entity.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and like his whole office is covered in all this like Mickey memorabilia stuff. Just kind of creepy when you think about it, man. You're like, how many kids, you know, have subjected themselves to forces unknown by just, I don't know, watching something or
hundreds of millions.
Yeah, man. It's scary to think about because
there's no father in all those like Disney things too. There's no like
None.
father figure controlling anything.
None. Yeah. And that's because Walt Disney, he didn't have a father, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like he's in a way programming other people with his trauma, because either the father's not there or he dies at the very beginning. I've always thought that to be very dark, and now my son sees it too. He's like, "Wow, that is weird."
It's kind of an unspoken thing. That's the kind of more dangerous thing about Disney is like the subtle, you know, indoctrination. Like no father, and the women are always going around. There's witches around and all this stuff. All these things.
They always meet some witch.
There's always
grants
a
them
witch.
Something. And
here's the thing about Alan Moore. His god was Glycon. There was a lot that seemed to be connected with this Roman snake god whose name was Glycon. Now, the only references there are to him, which are very disparaging, are in the works of philosopher Lucian. Lucian explains that the whole Glycon cult was an enormous fraud and that Glycon was a glove puppet. I have no reason to believe that, but then he goes on like he's connected to Glycon and a representation of this god. The god Glycon was supposed to be, at the time of his inception, was supposed to be the second coming of the god Asclepius, which is the god of medicine, is traditionally shown as an old man with a snake around his staff. That is the origin of the caduceus symbol, which you see in ambulances and hospitals. The snake associated with healing. And then he like goes in like he's talked to the snake Glycon person. Crazy. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There's an image right here. It seems like Glycon has the head of a human. Like a lot of these deities. It's weird because even when you get into, the theorized Anunnaki or the Fallen, you have like two camps of them. You have more of these like serpentine deities, and then you have a lot on the other side of this eagle symbolism, right? And you kind of, that's how you can, for me, you can tell what deities are being venerated by the symbolism that these people put out. Now, I mean, it is all part of the same fallen world, but I have a show where we kind of dive in a little deeper to some of these entities, and this is pretty creepy though. Looks like it has the face of a goat almost.
And there is kind of a tie-in between Jack the Ripper and Crowley. Crowley believed that he had a lot of the Jack the Ripper ties, and he showed them to somebody he knew at his magical kind of fraternity, the Abbey of Thelema. So it's kind of interesting.
So when did Thelema come about?
He created his own religion. So he was like really wanted to transcend or overshadow Christianity. He had a real desire to do that. So he named his religion Thelema, which is Greek for will. And it's kind of an important word for him because in the gematria, Thelema adds up to 93. So does agape. So that's why kind of he will say love under law, love under will. So law, love, and will both equal 93. So actually you'll see guys like Jimmy Page sign their stuff shorthand, 93, 93, 93. But so Thelema was the name, is kind of the name of his religion, which included the Book of the Law and all the ceremonial magic and all these Libers. Like, if you kind of get into Crowleyism, you'll notice that he just has all kinds of different documents that are very veiled language, and like the Book of Lies and things like that. And he actually put together a system for his kind of acolytes, and that's what the Lima. So you see Liber 44, Liber 88, Liber 66. Liber 66 has a reference to child sacrifice.
Really? Yeah, that 66 is key. And then and I've talked about this before. 666 could be interpreted in many ways, right? I think it's about intention with certain numbers. It's kind of like, to me, the number 666 and let's say like LaVey's Church of Satan was thrust into the public, just like a kind of like look over here, right, at this form of Satanism. So don't pay attention to all this stuff, like what we were saying, that's going on kind of behind the scenes or to the side over here. Do you think there's anything to that with like all the celebrities joining the Church of Satan, or was LaVey like the real deal?
I think that he was kind of like more of a carnival barker of Satanism, but I think that he believed all that stuff and was into transgression and things like that. I don't know how dark he got, but a lot of these guys get pretty dark. Like, I think Aquino was involved in a lot of pretty dark stuff. The Process Church, for sure.
Oh yeah,
but I think they were all involved in mind control one way or another. And I think I've actually have parts of my book in Children of the Beast where like people saw LaVey's library, which included books on the occult and mind control. So it's like, see, it's a part of the Satanism, which is, control and power over others, right? So why wouldn't you be involved in mind control?
Yeah, which is what they do, through all of this pop culture, all this stuff that they put out to the masses. Disney was a member of Desmoulins, right?
Jacques Desmoulins, right?
Yeah, that occult order. And so it is like it was planned a long time ago. And so, man. Yeah,
it's a long kind of long history. Jacques Desmoulins, for people who don't know, he was the last head of the Templar order before it was supposedly shut down in the 13th or 14th century. So that's the introductory order to the Masons, is Jacques Desmoulins.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. That's why he's important to them. The Templars were the first bankers, some piracy, and ostensibly, involved in protecting routes to the Holy Land, but they became super powerful, a threat to the sovereignty of monarchs in Europe, and so the monarchs shut them down and took all their money.
Wow. Yeah, as they do. And we talked about on Already Dead, I think, me, you, and Jose got into the Knights of Malta. And you have been doing a lot of research on that lately. Is that like a different order in itself, or is this tied into Crowleyism as well?
It's a good question. The Knights of Malta is separate than the Templars, and it's a different group. It goes back to the Holy Land. They started, I think, in the 11th century, so it's like literally a millennia old.
Right.
It's a charitable, publicly, it's a charitable organization, but it is different. And whether there's a cultist, it's not overt. Its membership list is not public, so you kind of have to find out what other people are saying who are members, or their biographies, or people who've admitted to being members. Like, I just found out that Rick Joyner, a very well-known Christian minister, is an overt and found member of the Knight of Malta. But how many Satanists are in that I bet is a very minimum amount, considering that is a Christian order and you have to be a Catholic. Okay. Well, they used to say you had to be a Catholic. It used to be an elite order, but I think things are changing. So I don't know, but I wouldn't say that it's part of the occult framework. Maybe it is. Maybe there's overlapping things. Like, I know that King Charles III is a member of the Knights of Malta, and he knows a lot of stuff. Like, his brother is the head of the Masons in England, right? The Duke of York, Andrew. He was part of Epstein's network, and his mommy had to pay out $12 million 12 million pounds for his relationship to just one person, which was Virginia Giuffre. But yeah, so I mean, it's part of that kind of secretive, power-based type stuff. I think a lot of these occult, like a lot of the people who are in these occult groups, it's not disclosed. The membership isn't disclosed, so you wouldn't know unless they admitted it.
Right. Yeah, because I can't remember when, but the first time that I got all into this, like the Crowley documentary that I watched, it's like it barely scratched the surface. Like it told you enough to be disgusted by him. Like it gets real into the abbey that he lived in Italy.
Yeah, the Abbey of
I can't remember the name.
The Abbey of Fatima is in Cefalù, Sicily. It's actually close to Malta, actually. Strange.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, that was one of the first things that got me like real interested in, you know, what are some more of these occult groups and how are they connected? I know you have dove into the Order of Nine Angles. Well, how did that come about?
Came about my research into the smiley face killings, where young men go out at night and end up dead in water, which is kind of a phenomenon happening much more recently, especially in like Chicago and Austin, Texas. But so I've researched that. Why is this happening? They're clearly not drowning themselves. And it's like, then it kind of, somebody said, hey, have you ever heard of the O9A? And I didn't know about them, but they're kind of another group, another occult group that believes in culling, which is, you know, killing off certain parts of humanity.
Right.
And secretly doing it. Like they literally, it's part of their doctrines. So I was like, well, I got to find out about these guys. And they're very, very nasty, very horrible doctrines and global in reach, really. There's small little sects or cells of them. And they've been tied to many crimes or many attempted crimes, known crimes. And God only knows other crimes that they've gotten away with. But there's the lead backs to this O9A, and they've morphed into kind of a really dark child abuse, is a nice way of putting it. Child abuse ring. And they call the new term as CSAMs, child sexual abuse material. But they're like online, and it's morphed into this group 764.
764. Yeah, I've actually.
And then that has morphed and fragmented into other groups as well. But basically, a lot of these guys have been busted and put away for very long jail terms. But it was important for me to figure out O9A, so I read all their stuff, and that was the result of that. Were a lot of podcasts and a lot of book on this one book, Global Death Cult, because it attached to the far right here in the U.S. called Atomwaffen. Yeah, that's their symbol. And Atomwaffen and some of these other acts of the far right here would, and they have like some of these Atomwaffen guys like Charles Manson of all people. So pretty
really,
yes, the Atomwaffen group really admires Charles Manson's view on the world and his attitudes. And yeah, they actually, Atomwaffen had a kind of meeting where they went out to the desert in California, where Charles Manson said the cave to the next world was. That's what he would tell his followers. So there's pictures of these Atomwaffen guys there as well.
Like this guy?
That is the symbol. That's the 333. That's the kind of symbol of, I think it's the Order of Nine Angles. I think that's one of their symbols. But that's definitely the regalia, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of 764, especially like being online and grooming young kids.
In the worst way. Scarification, blackmail material, telling them to do terrible things. It's really bad. There was one guy they caught in Texas, and his whole thing all day was just to abuse kids, you know. That was his life. He spent 10 hours a day. And it starts out innocuous because they go to like Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite and start talking to people and say, hey, come over to my Discord server, and then they go to the Discord server, and then they go, come on over to this secret server, and then the abuse begins, and then they do horrible things. There's like people have shown up. Like imagine like you have a 14-year-old daughter, and some guy who's like 25 drives out and lives in the forest behind your house and abuses your daughter. Like that's what happened in one case of a guy, just rando guy online. So people have to be really careful about what's going on around.
Wow, man. I haven't really looked into that group that much, but I figured I
it's
would
dark.
ask
There's
you.
a lot of recent cases. There's a lot, and you can look up BX on Twitter.
I follow
She's,
DX.
yeah. She's done like 3 or 4 great documentaries about them. I think that's kind of like what she's been. I mean, it's amazing too, because I knew about some of the child abuse, pedophilia stuff of the kind of 09A kind of guys, and they kind of branched out too. Like there was Krieg Waffen and these other things, but I didn't know not 764 when I published my book in 2021. So a lot of this stuff is very recent, like within the last 3 or 4 years. It's unbelievable.
So do you think this group is like it's kind of carrying on like this Crowley?
I think in part, yeah, I think so. Like accelerationism,
right.
nihilism, breakdown of society, Satanism in a lot of ways. I mean, it's very adversarial. They ruin kids' lives. Like these kids are going to have to go into therapy or be traumatized or whatever. Like they're traumatizing these kids. I think mostly women. So,
Right.
The consequences of that are never good.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, it does seem like that you start to find government agencies tied into these groups, right? Have you found anything like that with this order?
No, I have not. Not with the order of 9 angles. I haven't seen like somebody puppeteering people. They are what the opposite of what an 09A recommends is fulfilling an insight role, which is to infiltrate these organizations, whether it's defense or politics, and kind of try to influence them negatively with your agenda, with the kind of nihilistic end of the world agenda. So I think that's the opposite. I haven't seen. There was somebody who was a supposed agent provocateur / informant that happened a couple years ago that definitely was affiliated with this one cell, this one kind of tendril from the 09A, which is called the Temple of Blood. That's what that picture was, the 333. That was the Temple of Blood symbol. There's a guy from there who allegedly, I mean, there's court cases and criminal records about this guy talking about other members of Atomwaffen and his evidence that he spoke led to some of these people's arrests.
I got you. Okay.
There was a recent one, actually. One of the guys I studied when I published my book in 2021, he was still in jail. His name was Russell. And he got out after I published my book. He got out and he's back in jail because he and his other 09A affiliated female sidekick were plotting to blow up the electrical grid of the whole city of Baltimore.
Really?
Yep.
What?
Yeah, Clint Russell, I think was his name. Yeah,
Clint
he was the head of the Atomwaffen, and he was around people who got like killed. Like a couple other members of Atomwaffen got unalived by a guy who wasn't well and shot him with an AK-47.
Yeah, I've seen some of these guys that claim to be in these groups, and it's real weird, man. So like back before I had gotten off of opiates and stuff, back when long time ago, basically, I was a very different person. I was an atheist, just going down a bad path. I was into a lot of like dark underground rap, and I also grew up playing metal and stuff. So you kind of you see these themes that they use, and even the music that like you see some of these people use in their videos all come from the same underground scene of music. And it's just very, very scary to me that like if I would have stayed doing that stuff or on that, maybe I would have been, I don't know, programmed into one of these groups, or it seems like a very slippery slope, as everything is with the occult. I know stories of other guys in heavy rap who like it got so dark that they like turned back and became born again Christians. That's what basically happened with me, man. I almost experienced death a couple times, and I basically found Christ, and I think avoided a life of hell, or it seems like so long ago, but it really, I guess now it is almost a decade ago. Time
glad
flies.
you made it. The guy's name is Brandon Russell. Sorry, I think
Brandon. I was about to say Clint
Brandon
Russell
Clint
from Liberty
Russell.
Lockdown.
I'm pretty sure his name is Brandon Clint Russell. So I'm sorry that I misspoke. I follow Clint Russell online, so I apologize in advance, Clint. I was trying to remember the name offhand. I'll specifically say it again. The guy who tried to blow up Baltimore, his name was Brandon Russell, but I think his middle name is Clint.
I had a couple people right here.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Wait, Clint Russell.
I'm a fan, Clint Russell.
We love
your
Clint.
work.
We love Clint.
Yeah, the real name is Brandon Clint Russell, so it's an easy thing to mistake for Clint Russell. So
I'm sure that's a very common name as well. So let's see. I wanted to bring up. So yeah, we were talking about Crowley. So what do you think the end goal is for what he started, or the energy that he has awakened? Because you were talking about how all these politicians are kind of in these occult groups. It's the same with all these scientists as well. You had mentioned Jack Parsons, Warner von Braun, I think was an occultist. Probably not really. He didn't proclaim himself as one, but he was. He was a
Nazi. He was like a Nazi corporal or whatever. I don't know.
We know about Rudolf Hess and all those guys, and the Vril Society, the Thule Society, and to me, that all just ties into these other secret orders. It's all part of one grand scheme.
I think so. I think he had very lofty ambitions, which were to create a new aeon, which is like 1,000-year Reich, much like Hitler. So he wanted to create 1,000-year kind of new occult regime with his religion. I don't think he got close, but he definitely made the foundation for the 60s. So, and for present day today. So I think that the drug use and the sexual immorality can be traced through Crowley for sure. Not too directly to Crowley, but you can trace it from Crowley to Kinsey. Kinsey was a Crowley fan. He wanted Crowley's diaries. Kinsey, The Sexual Life of the American Male, I think, was published in 1948, I think.
Is he the guy who drove around in that bus?
No, that's Kinsey. That's the guy who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
Okay. Sorry.
Kinsey was a guy who supposedly was a very influential sexologist. He was paid by the Rockefellers, but nobody can duplicate his research. And he kind of had the same conclusion as Crowley. Like there's no rules to, there's no barriers to your sex life. You can just do whatever you want.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with Timothy Leary and that whole LSD culture, right?
Yeah. Leary said, I just posted something on my social media today on X where he's saying I'm carrying on the work of Aleister Crowley.
I've seen that.
Mm.
I've seen that.
That's the Merry Pranksters is what you're thinking of.
Okay. That is what I'm thinking of.
Which is like a Johnny Appleseed of LSD.
Okay. I remember seeing that documentary, and it didn't really sit right with me, to be honest with you. Like I said, experience with that stuff a long time ago. Don't know the damage it may have done to me, but that's that's all in the past now.
Yeah, Ken Kesey is the guy similar to Kinsey.
That's the guy. That's the guy. That's who I thought you were talking about. But wasn't Crowley agent of the Crown? Like,
Yeah, I think
MI5, MI6 or something.
It was before they created these two departments, the MI5 and MI6. It was domestic and international, but that was done interwar. So Crowley was a member of something called the Secret Intelligence Service, which predates that. So predates, I think he got started prior to World War One. He ended up in strange places at really opportune times at very important political events. Like he was in, if you remember, the Russian Revolution took place in 1918, but there was an earlier one that kind of was like a precursor in 1905. And here's Crowley traveling around with like this girl group called the Good Time Girls, and he's making his way through St. Petersburg. I think he made it to Moscow, but for a short stint. So he did like one season he was there. But it's an interesting time for him. And he was really, I call him a literateur, because he didn't just write books. He was just constantly writing tons of correspondence and letters and postcards, and they're all in record. The ones that are around are just voluminous. So I think that he was traveling around and sending information. He was kicked out of Italy by Mussolini. He left the U.S. after the U.S. got into the war, into the Great War, World War One. He was kicked out of France. And there he is in kind of a, very important time, the Weimar Republic, before Hitler came to power. Here he is in Germany for 2 or 3 years. So
Really?
yeah, he's just in weird places at strange times. He's hard to trace. He's kind of hard to trace because he's always on the move. He's not in one place for like 20 or 30 years. He's like in Scotland, then in London, then he travels to Switzerland, then he goes to India, then he circumnavigated the globe twice. So he's passed through the United States, then he's in New York, goes to Florida, goes to New Orleans, goes to New Hampshire.
I had no idea.
Yeah, no, he's bouncing around constantly. Then he's in Italy, then he gets kicked out of Italy, then he goes to Tunisia, then he's in Algeria, and he's just in France, Paris, Germany, all kinds of places, Russia.
Seems like
Egypt.
Yeah. It seems like he was maybe spreading like his dogma, right? Spreading his word, the word of Thelema, or whatever you want to call it, whichever one of these orders he was a part of at the time.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was really an evangelist for his ideas. And I think even at the end of his life, people say like he's fake, or this whole like his whole occult stuff was an intel persona. Like it's not something that he believed, but like it was some persona. But there's so many private things he did that belie, that would indicate that he really believed it. Like he had huge amounts of magical records. So he's writing kind of like a diary about his magical experience for himself. It's not for somebody else. It's like something that he's retreading. He also writes something, Magic Without Tears, at the end of his life, where he's sending these like letters to admirers telling him how to practice magic. Like this is, why would he do that if it's just like continuing the intel? Like I think he really was an occultist to the end. That was his goal. And he said that actually when he left Cambridge. He said, "I was amongst the glories of the past, and I intend to be a glory of the future." And I think he achieved that kind of dark glory of somebody who really was an encyclopedic, person who had encyclopedic knowledge of the occult.
Yeah, is this the book of the law that he's having
pose
with right here?
I don't know which book that is, honestly. I can see it here.
Because I know what the pose he's doing, that's another sign of being like a master initiate, right?
Yeah, that might be his diary or something like that. That's definitely the Eye of Horus on the top of that thing. He's making the symbol of Pan, so that's like the how when they do those arms, which I use this for kind of my title of my book, Prophet of Evil, because it's kind of his face sticking out of these two
pillars,
pillars,
right? Yeah. Wow.
I think this is his magical name. It says Magister Perdurabo. His magical name was Perdurabo, which means I shall endure.
Man, this is this is the first time I've we've watched some videos on my show before. This is the first time that I've really got into some details about who he was. What would you say, like, what books would be best? Because like we said, just because you look into somebody or you look into a topic like the occult doesn't mean that like you're an occultist, doesn't mean that you're aspiring to be an occultist. I do think if you're not aligned spiritually, maybe you should, think twice about doing it, just because I said it is a slippery slope. Some people may not be strong enough to handle some of this information, What book would you say to like get to look more into him? Just like,
I would start with my book, Prophet of Evil, and then read Children of the Beast, because you'll see how many people are influenced by Crowley. So many people, Led Zeppelin and Leary and Moore and all these other people, like, all have a Crowley connection or like Crowley.
Black Sabbath.
And they're written from kind of a Christian, like I have 3 quotes from the Bible at the intro of Children of the Beast. So like I'm saying, like, don't do this stuff, but it's good to know. And there's connections to the Manson family of the occult, Process Church. So like, I mean, to be I think my books, that's the purpose of why I wrote them, is people understand that from a Christian perspective, not as somebody who's like, that's one of the reasons why I wrote Prophet of Evil, because some of the other biographies are by people who liked Crowley, who are Crowley, and they're only going to give you a expurgated, section of all that, of Crowley, of what he does. And I kind of went into the more darker aspects of Crowley, the child sacrifice and the murders and all that stuff, people who died, or he threw, like Leah Hersig was a Scarlet Woman. She ended up being a prostitute. There's people who went insane. I talk about that. Like, a lot of the women who were around him went insane. He used them as kind of energy sinks. Yeah, there's Children of the Beast.
Is this the best place to get it? Is on Amazon?
You can buy a signed copy from me from my website if you want, but yeah, you can get it there.
No,
I think
I'd rather get it from
your
you.
Listeners could too. Yeah, I think that's the 2nd edition. So. And I think I'm on the website? 3rd edition. What? Pardon me? WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com.
Still working on interrupting Williams.
That's okay.
William Ramsey Investigates. Should have already had it pulled up. Is this it?
That is it. People thought it was too dark black, so I had to put in a nice turquoise background.
It is nice. Very mellow.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you like it.
Dude.
People always accuse me of being an occultist. I'm like, you have no idea, man. No clue.
Nah, man.
So you can buy it there, and there's I think there's a lot of good information in there. It's actually probably one of my best reviewed books.
Yeah. I see Tim Leary, Anger, Manson, Parsons.
Yep.
Who are some more of these people?
Kinsey, that's one of his followers holding up the Stella of Revealing. His name was McMurtry, and that's Alan Moore, and then also another guy by the name of Robert Anton Wilson.
Okay.
Who wrote the Illuminatus trilogy.
Yeah, I have heard of Robert Anton Wilson before. Someone else whose books that I've been meaning to look at.
If you ever remember the Illuminati cards, the Steve Jackson cards that are all over the internet, supposedly that's the guy who inspired that, Robert Anton Wilson.
Can you still find those cards?
I think so. You can purchase them. I believe they're available for purchase. Yes.
Yeah, William, I'm going to have to cop me a couple of these books, man.
There's a lot of reading to do. A lot of reading.
I have a lot of books that I still need to read, but I usually will read a few books and then, put out some episodes on them and then go back in and see if there's anything that I missed. So you had mentioned the smiley face killers. That's one thing that I've never really looked into fully. but I've always been pretty interested in it. What can you give me like just a
Yeah, it's
summary
just
of
like
what
I
happened?
mentioned earlier. It's just this whole phenomenon of young men going to bars, disappearing, often for a long period of time, later to be found in water. And it got its name, the Smiley Face Killers, because people associated these deaths with this kind of symbol of the smiley face that would show up in the earlier crimes. The original kind of investigators gave it this kind of tag. The original investigators were Gannon and Gilbertson. So it's kind of stuck. You could call it stage drowning. There's a guy on X or Twitter who calls these things stage drowning, which is probably more accurate. You could take the smiley face symbol out of it, but yeah, I mean, it's just happening all over. There were a lot of recent cases in Austin and Chicago, and it's just a phenomenon that's been going on probably the last 30 years. So I've done a book on it and 2 documentaries. People can check those out.
And your documentaries, they're on your Patreon, right?
Yeah, there's one, actually, the one of the smiley face documentaries on Amazon. For some reason, they won't upload or allow my other documentaries. So I had them formerly on Vimeo, but I felt like they were trying to gouge me. They wanted me to pay $250 a year to have my documentaries on there. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. And so I put them on my Patreon so people can say that. Yeah, Tim Dillon. I've talked to Tim Dillon about the Smiley Face Killers.
Okay.
I would like to apologize before we finish about putting Clint Russell in this. It's Brandon Clint Russell. Brandon, somebody's going to get in trouble. I am a fan of Clint Russell.
Nobody
I follow
clip
him
that.
on X. What's that?
I said nobody clip
Yeah,
that,
please don't clip that. In advance, I'm apologizing. His name is Clint Russell. It's Brandon Clint Russell. That's weird that they have the same kind of name.
It is
But
weird.
I follow Clint Russell and repost his stuff all the time. So
Clint's a good guy.
please don't get him in trouble. Somebody's going to do it. I already know how the internet works. Somebody's going to post this and say that I said his name.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
It's not the one.
here.
It's not the one who's a libertarian who posts a lot. It's the other guy who's was the head of Atomwaffen. How weird is that? Like 2 famous guys with the same name.
It's weird. The Franklin scandal. Yeah, I think I'm going to have Austin come on to talk about the Franklin scandal and a couple other things. I didn't know if that was tied into these other. Well, I guess it's a little different. You have Larry King, who was what kind of like, was he a politician or was he?
He was in Omaha, Nebraska, and he was the head of a savings and loan, which probably is before your time. They had this huge savings and loan scandal where all these guys started savings and loan and just looted them. And he was one of them. He started his own savings and loan. But what's weird about him was his political connections. And he actually sang the national anthem, I think at the Republican National Committee in 84 or something like that. He's like a light-skinned black guy.
Yeah.
But
He's still alive.
he's still alive. He was in
Walking
D.C.
free.
when I was in D.C. So I think he's
Really?
around. People have like tracked him down. Like there's people, the internet is forever. So if somebody found
Right.
him like working, I think somebody found him working at a car dealership or something.
Man, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. You watch that confession of Paul Benazzi, and it's crazy to think that this guy is still walking free today after
They got
hearing-
away with it.
Yeah.
They got away with it.
It baffles me how that happens, especially when you have like people who were children at the time. Like, why would this person lie about what happened to him? You know, this elaborate story of like what he had to endure and what he had to watch these people do to other children. It's sickening. That's another first thing.
All the kids ended up in jail or dead. Like that's really like I think one guy, the girl was put in jail for complaining, and then the guy died in a plane crash, and then
Pretty
Troy
uncanny.
Boner ended up dead. Like a lot of these guys ended up dead. Those are the ones that were published. I talked to the guy who did Conspiracy of Silence, Tim Tate. They pulled his documentary. Tim Tate is like a full-on hero, man. Super courageous.
What's
But
his name?
that caused just all kinds of consternation. That was not supposed to be shown ever. Somebody did not want that documentary shown.
What's his name again?
Tim Tate.
Tim Tate.
Tate. I've done like 3 or 4 episodes with him on my podcast.
Okay, cool.
He also wrote a book about satanic child abuse. That was
SRA.
also like, yeah, he had trouble with that too. Like, he's like, no, this is real, man. This is real stuff.
Wow.
But the libel laws and the kind of publishing laws are much different in the UK than the US.
Yeah, it seems like now in this age of information, you find a lot more videos on YouTube of like videos from the 80s and 90s of these kids talking about how they were sexually abused. And it's like, why are these videos just now coming out? You know?
They're suppressed. Like, there's a lot. I mean, it happens. It's really gnarly. There's other, I mean, things are coming out like this whole connection between Coral, the Candyman, and then the clown, Gacy. There's like connections between them and this huge pedophile. I think it's called Pegasus. It was young boys, you know, with like just a massive trafficking ring. That's just one of them, you know. This was before the internet. And I think the internet just massive, like, I mean, apparently Facebook is just totally redolent of rife with, like, sex trafficking CSAM material. They had a hearing on it last year, and Zuckerturd was there, like, apologizing to all these people, victims whose porn was being shown. And some of this abuse porn ends up on Pornhub, some of these other sites. It's sick.
Some of it ends up on Twitter.
Sick.
Yeah. It really is, man. I'm not gonna Fed post, but I think that there's a special place in hell for those people.
Yeah,
and,
they should at least go to jail. Like, I mean, this is how crazy
least,
this country is because this trafficking is happening openly on a website. Like, you can just go on and see who's posting them and find their freaking ISDN number or whatever it is. They're like, internet number and ask. I mean, it's crazy. Like, some of these, like, there's more public groups, pedophile, confronting pedophiles than the government itself, at least before, during Biden, which tells you everything about the Biden administration. Total
Absolutely.
joke.
The Obama administration, you mean?
Right. Yeah. Obama. Yeah. I mean, Biden and Harris were not running anything. Like, she's a total idiot. She's like a 2-digit IQ, total moron.
Oh yeah, she's bad, man.
It's really scary because she was the Attorney General of California. Like, how does this happen? How do you get a total idiot into these positions of power? She's one breath away from the presidency, and literally couldn't find Indonesia on a map. She had no idea when she was talking about Russia. It was like a 5-year-old talking about Russia. She had no clue about geography. She's a total idiot. Her whole freaking presidential campaign was a joke. It was just a bunch of dancing people they paid millions of dollars to. It's like incredible. They didn't have any agenda. She couldn't figure it out because she's too stupid to put like what are your positions on things? I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing it. I mean, they stole the Biden administration. Billions are missing, if not hundreds of billions.
Yeah. And it seems like they robbed this country too.
Yeah, they did. They robbed us.
Yeah. Yeah.
They robbed people like you and me who have to pay the taxes. So we're paying 35 to 50% taxes so these people can steal it. Like, it's just it's an obvious money laundering, not a money laundering. It's just a kleptocracy is really what it is. People are like, we're doing this for democracy. No, you're not. You're lying. Anybody who says democracy, they should just interplay the real word, which is kleptocracy. I should probably wrap it up. I got another one at 1:00.
Okay. Got you, William. Well, yeah, man. This was fun talking to you. I really want to have you back on sometime to maybe dive into something else. Maybe me, you, and Austin can do something together.
Read one of my books. We can talk about it. There's a lot to talk about. Global Death Cult.
About to order one of them right now.
There's a lot going on out there.
Well, do you want to put your plugs in and just where
Yeah,
people can find
William Ramsey Investigates on podcasts. Check it out. I got a lot of stuff. You can go through my catalog. There's a lot of stuff that we've talked about today. And then 5 books on Amazon, 5 books on my website, and 5 documentaries on Patreon. All you got to do is pay $5 a month, and you can watch them all at your leisure for free.
I may have to join your Patreon too, William. So
yeah, check it out. I post a lot of my stuff so people can watch it without ads too. So you can watch a lot of my stuff without ads there too.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for coming on. It's gonna take me a few minutes to put my plugs in, so I don't.
Okay,
I'm
gonna run
get out of here.
I'm gonna run,
William.
and I'll be live again in 30 minutes.
All right,
man. Thanks for having me. Good talking with you.
Talk to you
Jules.
later, bud.
Yeah, take care.
Yes,
Till
sir.
next time.
Yes, sir. Guys, that was fun. There's I think I had some questions, like more questions that I wanted to ask him, and I can't even find my damn sheet. So we're gonna have to get him on again soon. I know Austin would probably want to come on, and I know he's been on Occult Rejects as well as John Lee's show. So maybe we could do like an occult roundtable, talk about a bunch of things. I think that'd be fun. But